Everybody in this room knows better than I do the nature of extrajudicial killing of black people, African people, and others. I was reading a famous Native American case the other day in the New York Review of Books, right? So it's not just African people who suffer, but you are more knowledgeable than me about the actuality. The cases come to me one step removed. So I see a Rodney King because that's international. I hear about a Diallo because it goes international and somebody sings a very good song about it. And I hear about lots of others because I read and people send me things. But I'm not expert payaso, as us Jamaicans would say. I don't know about this place. What I do know about is Jamaica and the UK. And extrajudicial killings and police terrorism. Now, we live in a world where the capitalist system has abandoned one enemy, communism, world socialism, no longer its enemy. And world socialism is indeed in crisis, nobody's enemy at the moment because it doesn't represent very much just at the moment. Let us leave that to one side. Capitalism, racism, imperialism, that system, white power, has needed for some time an alternative mortal enemy to frighten you and me if we're fool enough for frighten, right? Them say in Jamaica, Duppy know who for frighten, ghosts know who to, make afraid. So, these states that we live under have set up a whole thing about terrorism. They have two modes of it, narco-terrorism and Islamic terrorism. They are the inventors of Islamic terrorism. I say that in all seriousness. And those who know the history of Islamic terrorism know that the West brought it into being to use against its former mortal enemy, the communists, right? They funded all of the people that they're now tracking down in Afghanistan when they were literally skinning Russians, right? Our governments had no problem with that, right? Now they've run into a little local difficulty around Islamic terrorism, which I don't say is unreal, but I say they created it. And they want to frighten us around and against an enemy that is not ours and which they created. So I'm not going to follow them down the road there. Let us not go down that road after them. But in the process of preparing to fight that enemy, they have done extraordinary things to law and human rights, wicked things, right? And us Africans and people of goodwill need to understand the extent of the backwardness of the provisions that have been put into place under the various pieces of legislation that have gone through the legislature here, the setting up of that Department of Homeland Security and all of that stuff, the extent to which, independently of that, under the Bush-Cheney leadership, human rights were systematically violated. Not the rights of those people who were so obviously violated in Abu Ghraib or in Guantanamo. My human rights and yours, my brothers and sisters and comrades. We got to understand just how extensive and deep that attack on our human rights went. And behind that smokescreen, many remarkable pieces of brutality, state terrorism, have been instituted. We have been put into a moment when state terrorism in many places is the order of the day. And the regimes that are carrying it out call themselves liberal democratic. Or as Bush the Younger says, call themselves capitalist democracies. Right? Did you hear him use that phrase? It's a wonderful phrase. So, what we need to do is look at what they are doing to us. And again, you know the story here. In the UK, the story is longer than post 9/11. It starts much earlier than that. My research, for example, on black community history in the UK shows me the first post-war local case of the state killing a black person in 1948. The story says it's in the local newspaper that covered the Brixton area in South London, the South London Press. It says the man was in prison, Brixton Prison. It's a remand center. The man had died in the jail. Turns up before an inquest, and the prison officers come and say that they saw him crouching in front. They looked through the keyhole, or whatever it was, the viewing space, and see him crouching down in like a tiger behind the door. Now, if you see a prisoner doing that, why on God's earth would you collect up 8 prison officers and go and open the door? But that is what they say happened. And they said from his crouching position, he leapt out at them. And in the process of restraining him, he died. Right? That is a story that the coroner accepted. You have coroners here? Yes, that the coroner accepted as true. My first post-Second World War death in custody. But the history in the UK of police killing black people and Asian people, killing Muslims increasingly now, is long and varied. And they don't just kill us. There's a notorious case about 3-4 years ago of a Brazilian, nothing to do with terrorism, a Brazilian worker living in London. He comes out of his house, the state misidentify him, the police officers who had every chance to arrest him follow him, they go down into the tube station, what do you call it? Subway. Yes, the subway. And he follow him onto a subway train, and on the subway in front of people, they throw him onto the ground and pump 8 bullets into his head. Innocent man. Right? They thought they had a terrorist, and it's okay if you have a terrorist, whether you can arrest him beforehand or not safely, to kill him in that way in front of the public. Right? Before another coroner's court in England right now, this week, as I speak, is a case of a perfectly respectable white guy, a lawyer, distinguished lawyer. Little bit funny, he couldn't manage the coke he was taking. So he goes to court to work one day, takes coke either at home or gets home early, and he picks up his shotgun. He had it entirely legally, and fires some shots wildly out his kitchen window. They have the machinery. So they assemble the machinery to deal with this man who is not a terrorist. He has a gun and he's firing, but everybody knows, including them, that he's not really dangerous, just, going through a little something, and he can be talked down. And they say so to him. It's there in the records that is how they're regarding him. And then, the first opportunity that they get to shoot him, he leans out of the window with the gun. It turns out that it's a shotgun, so it's crap. Can't be fired. The expert evidence say that in the process of dropping it, the gun opened. Not a thing don't go so. A shotgun does not break open accidentally when you drop it in that way, right? So the gun was obviously not ready to fire, but he showed himself out of a window, and 9 of them shot him straight away, despite having just told him, "Don't worry, nobody is intending to kill you," right? So it's not just we black people that they do that stuff to. They do it to all kinds of people because that is how they are now set up and what they are now set up to do. Right? So, for the black people, these things are happening in much the same way. We have a brother called Derek Bennett. They shot him 5 times in the back and in the head. There's another brother shot 6 times in the back and the head. And the 2 bullets missed him. 2 of the bullets fired missed him because he fell too quickly for those to hit him. Right? This is going on. There's a whole list, and a long one, of police murders of that kind. either with guns or with truncheons. When they kill you with truncheons or batons, what do you call them here? Nightsticks. When they kill you with those, they always find that your skull was especially or uniquely soft. Right? So that happened. I'm absolutely serious. That is how it goes. So it go. Right? That is how it is. So the record of this goes back over the years. My first case, 1948, coming right through up to now. It's still happening in much the same way, with much more intensity, because the now massively armed police feel entitled to use those weapons, feel apparently that they even need practice. Right? And so they kill people, including one man who was completely naked in the street, clearly unarmed, pumped full of bullets. Right? Some extraordinary things are happening in the very civilized place, allegedly, that we call the United Kingdom. Let me turn, since we do not have all night, to the situation in Jamaica. Be in no doubt that it's a grave situation. Those of you who read, go on the internet, right, or Amnesty International is here, get its report, any of its recent reports, and just turn to J and look up Jamaica and see what it has to say about extrajudicial killings there. This is a society of under 3 million people. 200 plus people on a regular basis get killed by the police. On a regular basis, annually, get killed by the police. Right? Of course, civilians kill each other, African civilians killing fellow Africans in disturbingly large numbers also. But what we are concerned about tonight is what the state does to its African citizens. It is we who die, nobody else. What I'm talking about. Now, those of you who listen to the news understand that recently the neo-colonial state of Jamaica, in a place called Tivoli, right in the capital, killed in excess of 70, and depending on how you read the evidence and who you listen to, in excess of 100 people in that so-called garrison community. And before that, in that same place, a few years ago, the police and the army killed some between 22 and 28 people just outside the gates of that community. The police were angry, and they shot indigent people, dogs and rabbits and everything that moved. And amongst them were 28 people. Right? Same Tivoli Gardens, just outside, not inside. That same police force, a few years ago, went to a house where some young people were staying. They picked up 2 young men from another district and took them there, got them to open the door, went in behind them, let one of the youths they had brought there go, and they shot that one along with 6 of the youngsters who were in the house. They shot them in the head, one after another. People in the vicinity heard the no carpe, don't kill me, all of that. They heard the cries and screams. One man who was a Gleaner reporter at a leading national newspaper wrote a day or 2 after exactly what he'd heard. The forensic evidence was in the concrete. What the police said was that a shootout had occurred, that they arrived, announced themselves outside as the police, and the young men inside opened fire on them. Not a thing, no go, sir. All of the bullets went out when no bullets were fired from inside. All of the bullets were fired inside and fired by the state. And the evidence is there. They pinned the heads of some of the young men to the floor, onto the concrete, and fired into the heads. The bullet marks are on the floor. All of the people died at very close range, and you know, the forensics mean that you can establish the proximity of the gun to the body and all of that stuff, burn marks, all kinds of things, right? The evidence was there.